So I want to bring in two other people to this debate. One of them you've seen before, Eugene Puryear. Let's bring him in. He's the host of Breakthrough News. Did I say it right?
Well, you got Breakthrough News right. I'm a host at Breakthrough News.
Okay, whatever. You're gonna. Are you article shaming me?
I mean, I'm leveling multiple layers of shit.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, one at a time. So the first one was article. And he also just launched a great podcast called Punch Out.
The Punch Out. But this is the best you've ever done with my
I really am a Russian.
I feel fantastic about that. And while we're talking about Substack and Patreon, you can always go to patreon.com/breakthroughnews and support us there. Of course, we're funded by the American people.
Right.
Message. Actually, people around the world, too, to be honest with you. But nevertheless, happy to be here as always, Katie.
Yes, well, thank you for coming on, and also going to bring in making his Katie Halper Show debut, really game changer moment. Write down in your diary, journal this day, because you're going to look back. Benjamin Studebaker, who is a political theorist from the University of Cambridge. You can find all his work at benjaminstudebaker.com. And he also had a really interesting debate with Nathan Robinson about this and the Current Affairs podcast. So welcome into the fold.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I love
thanks so much for your patience.
Is that a refrigerator? I love it.
Oh yeah. Downstairs kitchen down here. Yeah.
Nice. Where? What city? Where are you, by the way?
Indiana.
Northwest
which is Indiana.
From whence you are?
Yes, that's from where I come.
Yes. Well, you're good. So Eugene and Benjamin, What have you been thinking besides, oh my God, I can't believe how behind the show is? What were your responses? What were your thoughts when hearing all of us, these centrist neoliberal shills that you see before you?
And if you disagree with me, we will kick you off the show.
Well,
she doesn't have control.
I'm not going to say I've been kicked out of better places, but I've been kicked out of a lot of places. But this actually would probably be the top of the list. But no, I mean, obviously, I haven't been thinking anything about neoliberal shows. I appreciate everybody on this show and the work that people have done, but I just disagree with the framework. I mean, just to dive right in, I mean, I think the issue of harm reduction to me kind of cuts both ways. And I think when we say, well, why is the reason people are not voting? I mean, would be more than happy. I'm always happy to see more investigation, but I think it's relatively clear when we looked at they're overwhelmingly working class, overwhelmingly young, overwhelmingly people of color, because their actual daily life experience tells them that there is relatively limited change in many different ways. I think there's a range of ways to look at this. And I think if we want to put it in individual issues, I agree that can be helpful in looking at it. I mean, you think, for instance, what is one of the biggest issues in every working class urban community in the country is gentrification. Now, gentrification are policies that are mainly laid out by the local housing authorities working at the state and the local level. But of course, that money, by and large, is coming from the federal government. And during the Obama administration, which had similar policies to what Joe Biden's proposing, they used large amounts of money and said, oh, we're doing all these great things. Everyone's criticizing the famed Hope 6 that Clinton brought in was associated with welfare reform. We're going to do all these new things. And what was the end result is that all of these major cities continue to push forward the gentrification style policies that are essentially, I would argue, really a form of ethnic cleansing when you look at 50% of Black people pushed out of Washington, D.C., where I lived for 15 years. And that's on the watch of Obama and on the watch of Mayor Muriel Bowser, who wrote Black Lives Matter in the street and talked about it at the DNC. So I could see how you might feel like, I don't know, maybe this isn't really something that is going to bring tangible change. I think we could go to a deeper level, of course, when we also talk about policing. Almost all cops are supporting Donald Trump. Nevertheless, most of the things we hear about as it concerns policing in America, and certainly the racist, violent, brutal nature of it, is mainly Democratic jurisdictions. Joe Biden is claiming he's going to give $20 billion to them and is arguing they should adopt a shoot to maim strategy. I guess it sounds cooler when you say shoot him in the leg, but I don't know. To me, that sounds
Israeli.
For people who might live, where I'm living right now in the Bronx, people who are living in South LA, on the south side of Chicago, in the west side of Atlanta, who are thinking, well, maybe I'm not really going to put my energy into something that has shown, whether it's Democrat or whether it's Republican, that they actually are destroying my life, that the harm is very real and often deeply deadly to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people a year who are being subjected to these brutal conditions. I mean, and I think we could go on and on all day on those sorts of comparisons. And I think that's exactly the problem, is that I agree with you 100%, Omar, that we have to move away from any sort of
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
He was on a roll.
Well done. Oh my God. The man.
Where was he going? Where was he going?
Oh my God.
Let's remember his last words so we can I'm just prompt him.
The way he got like
we have to
stopped
move. He
like
said,
this.
"I agree with you, Omar. We have to move away from." That's what
Right,
we'll prompt him.
Was he gonna say away from like
Well,
a
this is like
geographic
Mad Libs.
location?
This is like Mad Libs. Benjamin, not to put any pressure on you, you do not have to guess what he was going to say, but would you want to give you the chance while I think Eugene is just looking for the perfect word. He's not actually frozen.
Or Katie censored him. Wait.
How lucky to be frozen on that spot, though.
You're
He's
back.
Okay,
I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going to close.
you know that you were frozen after you said we need to move away from?
Yeah.
Yes, and I was going to say, I think we need to move away from a reality of how do we just deal with the least worst issue each time, and how do we create a new paradigm? Because the fact of the matter is, if we take every single election since 1984, people have said lesser of two evils, and the political register had only moved right. You could make a very credible case in 1992 that Bill Clinton was better than George H.W. Bush, and Bill Clinton launched some of the most devastating attacks on working class people in this country and around the world that we had seen in decades. So it's not even guaranteed. You look at the Supreme Court, Earl Warren, who is a white supremacist supporter of the Japanese internment camps and also the father of some of the most progressive court decisions ever. We give elections far too much agency, and we take too much away from movements, and we take too much away from the idea that movements have to have independent political voices to rally forces, to move from the margins to the center of society, to really make a change, which is why history is littered with examples of small groups of people doing what appear to be relatively futile things that obviously in retrospect were important points for people to come together, to start to build a movement, to chart a new course rather than to just be, a tail to the kite of some other political force. So from my point of view, I think it takes very much the sort of agency you sit yourself in and what you're constructing outside of the election that matters as much as anything else. When Obama inspired people to vote and said, we should be inspired by the youth that led us this summer, that was not people voting. It was people burning down police stations in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And if that's the energy he feels like he needs to ride off of to get people inspired to make change in this country, it should tell you something about the type of organizing and the type of movements we need to build and the things we should put the most stress on. And I think the times where we have to stand up and be counted even when it seems difficult.
So just to summarize, I want to make sure I'm getting this part right. Are you challenging the premise that harm reduction in this election would be achieved by Biden's victory? Or are you saying that shouldn't be the focus, and that focusing on that drifts us away from the path at hand, from the task at hand?
I'm saying I think the latter, but I am arguing to some degree the former, that I think that the harm reduction can cut both ways, and that many of the things that Biden has stated here is going to do is going to be deeply harmful to many millions of working class people in ways that many of us rose up against across the country this summer in anger about.
Okay. Benjamin. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and then we'll give it to Benjamin. Yeah.
Not challenging that Biden will be terrible, but is there any issue of all the ones you just named where a Trump presidency would be better?
Well, I mean, I think on most of them, I did mention North Korea, which might be the one that I did. But the Korean
might be actually,
But to speak directly to the housing policy and the other ones, no. But I think that's the problem, is that you could get killed by the cops either way. There's no difference. That they're going to kick you out of your home either way. There's not going to be a difference. I think that's certainly why people don't vote. And I think that if we don't look at how, in certain ways, yes, you can say this may be an advance or that may be an advance, but certain ways, no, it can be deeply harmful. And because of things we don't expect, that's why I used the 92 example, it can even be very harmful in ways that we never saw coming. And obviously you can say you can't plan for that, but I do think we have to think about it because historically it has been the case.
But even George H.W. Bush in 92, do you think he would have been any better than Bill Clinton? I mean, that's what I'm never arguing that Bill Clinton or Joe Biden are good people. I'm saying there's always the alternative. I mean, the alternative. Look, in 2016, I really got it.
It never happened though. Like to say George H.W. Bush, but it was Clinton who did after the crime bill, the anti.
I know it did, but with George H.W. Bush,
it's hypothetical. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I will say one thing in Eugene's favor, and then we're gonna, which is
I also want to add one thing before we
I
get
do
to
have
it.
so much to say, but I
I
guess
know,
Brendan
but hold
hasn't
on
spoken
one
yet.
second, and then hold on. Although I could, I guess, to be a good model, I could just pass it to Benjamin first, and then we respond. I just don't want to. I'll just say that. Crap! I can't remember what I said. You just said something. All right, go. Let's. All right. If you guys
Benjamin.
can do 30
No,
seconds.
let's go to
Okay,
Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Let's go to
Okay, yeah.
Benjamin.
All right.
And then we'll.
All right.